The Deceiver looms large in the lore, but does this translate to the tabletop? The C'tan Shard of the Deceiver is a hugely popular and fearsome, terrifying character in 40k lore. Let's have a look at what it does on the tabletop. We'll start with the stat block. Stat block wise, it has a movement of 8 inches, toughness of 11, and a save of 3+, and a 4-up invuln. That movement is less than the Void Dragon and the Nightbringer. They got bumped up from 6 to 10, but it's still a decent increase. It also has 16 wounds, a leadership of 6, and an OC of 4, so pretty much a standard C'tan profile. In terms of unit composition, obviously it's a solo model. It costs 285 points or an additional 40 if you take it in Pantheon of Woe, but that is 40 points well spent, and we'll come on to that later. And its base size is a mere 40mm. This is still the old fine cast model. It's made of resin. It's from the days when even the big bad guys in 40k were quite significantly smaller. But this probably won't last forever. There are advantages to using it on a smaller base, which we'll come on to shortly. But I absolutely predict that we will get a new Deceiver probably in the next edition of 40k. When we do get a new Deceiver, I hope they keep this lovely detail from the base of the current model. Look at that grumpy Necron, he's fantastic. Apologies, the picture's slightly blurry. It's a zoom in on the official GW model, but I still think it captures what I'm trying to say here. Make sure we keep this in the new model. Moving on to keywords, it has the monster, character and epic hero keywords. It also has fly and of course C'tan Shard of the Deceiver. Next up, let's take a look at its Wargear, and this is where there is some differentiation between the power in the lore and the power on the tabletop. But to be fair, that's probably for good reason. Let's start with Cosmic Insanity. It's got a range of 18 inches, 6 attacks, you're hitting on 2+, it's got a strength of 6, AP 2, damage 2. So it's going to be okay into like elite infantry or marines, that type of thing. Where it comes into its own is these 3 keywords that perfectly synergize together, and that is precision, which enables you to target characters, anti-character 4+, when you're wounding those characters, and then devastating wounds. So those 3 together make this a perfect character killer. So in the lore, he can deal with much, much bigger things, but on the tabletop, he is still very powerful into the right targets. Where it starts to get a little more interesting is its golden fists. This is its melee profile, and here you get 8 attacks, hitting on 2s with a strength of 10, AP 3 and damage 3. Not bad. So you can see he's got a bit of punch, but probably not enough to justify its points cost. But where it does start to justify those points is its abilities. Core ability wise, it's got reanimation protocols like all Necrons, and it has that lovely feel no pain of 5+, which all the C'tan get. It's also got deadly demise D6, it's got deep strike now, and it's got stealth, so it is -1 to be hit by shooting attacks at all times. Worth also saying that it is an enslaved star god. It's a shard of a C'tan, so this unit cannot be your warlord. Thank goodness, actually. Like all C'tan, it also gets Necrodermis, and remember this has changed. Necrodermis used to enable C'tan to halve all incoming damage, but it's been simplified now. All enemy attacks are now just -1 damage instead. And remember, please remember, you cannot reduce damage below 1. If it is a damage 1 attack, you can't make it 0 with this ability. The Deceiver also has a unique and very fitting ability called Grand Illusion, so let's take a look at that. This occurs at the end of deployment, so after both players have fully deployed all of their units, the Deceiver then allows you to redeploy up to 3 of your units. And if you want to, you can add them to reserves, and you can do that even if you've already hit the reserves limit. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but the option is there. The redeploy itself, though, is pretty useful. This ability used to be a lot more powerful in the past because in some instances it allowed you to redeploy after the roll-off for turn 1. So if you knew you were going first, you could redeploy aggressively and vice versa. Now it happens before that roll-off, but it is still a pretty useful ability. You can still use it to try and catch your opponent out. That's the datasheet done. Let's take a look at a couple of ideas of how to play this unit. First up is as a mid-table bully. He's durable, he's tough. I think he's the most durable C'tan because of that stealth ability. -1 to hit is really powerful. It means that he can almost sit on one of those central objectives and he's going to be a lot harder to kill than your opponent expects. And he also kills a lot of elite infantry that come anywhere near those objectives, which brings me on to my next point. He is a pretty good Terminator killer. He's great into, in fact, all 3 wound minis. So if you think about Terminators, but also Blade Guard, or if you're playing the mirror match Scorpex as well, he's excellent. Going a little bit more out on a limb, can you use him as a counter-attacker, as the hammer to your anvil? So could he support your Warrior Brick or your Wraith Brick, for example? The short answer for me is you probably need a bigger hammer. He just doesn't have the damage output of his bigger brothers. He doesn't eat tanks like the Void Dragon does, or eat anything like the Nightbringer does. So it can work, but it's not the best way to use this unit. The best way to play this unit is as a character sniper. As we said before, he's fantastic at shooting out characters because of those keywords on his range attacks, so use him as an assassin. Deep Strike is your friend here as well. You can position using Deep Strike or Rapid Ingress to get very close to where you need to be and then point and shoot at a character that you need to eliminate. The characters you want to eliminate are the force multipliers, those ones who significantly buff the unit that they lead. So I'm thinking in the mirror match things like the Overlord with the Warriors. I'm thinking about the Technomancer with the Wraiths. Or, for example, if you're playing into Space Marines, maybe the Judiciar, who gives that unit fights first, kill him, and then all of a sudden that unit becomes much more vulnerable. What about detachments? Well, I've picked 2 that I think are solid picks, and then a third kind of left field one. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. And the 3 I've picked are Pantheon of Woe, Hypercrypt Legion, and Awakened Dynasty. Pantheon of Woe, I think he's an absolute auto-include, and this is because of that extra 40 points you are spending. It is for what we commonly call the Vect ability. This is a 12-inch aura, and any enemy units that use stratagems within that aura have to pay an additional 1 CP for that stratagem. It's a CP tax, and that can be clutch. I think this is fantastic. He also obviously has that redeploy, and in a detachment where you have fewer models because you've invested more points in big things in the C'tan, that bait and switch or that redeploy can be even more crucial. Lastly, there's also incredible synergies with the stratagems, one of my favourites of which is Deadly Demise 3+, but we'll come on to that shortly. Now, Hypercrypt Legion might seem like an odd choice on paper because there's only one stratagem you can use with the Deceiver, and that is the strat that allows you to trigger your reanimation protocols when you're in reserves. However, the army rule, the detachment rule, is that uppy-downy. You can take the C'tan off the table as long as it's not in engagement range at the end of your opponent's turn. And it's got Deep Strike now, so you can drop him wherever you want. Again, that's giving you more maneuverability, and movement wins you games. Speaking of which, again, you get those bait and switch opportunities, and with fewer units, again, that becomes more important. And last but not least, you can use that uppy-downy and that Deep Strike to force your opponent to change its target priorities. So if you have a wounded Nightbringer that you need to survive for a turn, for example, you can drop the Deceiver down into an area that threatens your opponent and force it to focus some fire on that instead of the Nightbringer. The more shaky choice is Awakened Dynasty. Now, the redeploy shenanigans here I don't think are quite as useful. They might be useful for some of your counter-punching units, or for redeploying another C'tan or whatever, but fundamentally Awakened is often about your tanky units like your Wraiths or your Warriors holding that midboard, so your opponent knows where those units are going to go. And also, in terms of his damage output, as we said, he's quite good at that elite infantry kind of damage, but in Awakened Dynasty, that role is better filled by Illuminor Xeras and the Necrosaur. That's detachments done. Let's take a deeper dive into some of the stratagems they offer. We'll actually start with a couple of generic ones. My favourite, of course, is Rapid Ingress. 1 CP, absolute bargain. You get to Deep Strike the Deceiver in at the end of your opponent's movement phase and cause them all sorts of problems. Another one you can use from the generic pile is Heroic Intervention. Again, it's 1 CP, and this enables you to charge a unit that ended a charge within 6 inches. I'm using this when I want to go and punch some elite infantry that have charged one of my units to help that unit survive. Moving on to Pantheon of Woe, we've got Disharmonization Cascade. It's 1 CP, and this is the one that allows you to deadly demise on a 3+. A 2 out of 3 chance to blow up and do a bunch of mortal wounds. Sounds good to me. The other one I like a lot from this detachment is Molecular Erosion. Again, it's 1 CP. It forces the enemy unit to take a battle shock test at -1, and if they fail, they suffer D3 +1 mortal wounds. In Hypercrypt, there's only one strat, as I mentioned, called Reanimation Crypts. 1 CP, triggers your RP while you're in reserves. Very useful. I hope that's given you some great ideas on how to use this unit, but what about if it's on the other side of the table? Here's my ideas on how to deal with it. So how to defeat it? I mean, unless it's in Pantheon of Woe, you can probably ignore it. You don't want to ignore it if it's in Pantheon of Woe because it will have that 12-inch Vect and that will cause you problems. So get it out the way. You can definitely, however, feed it chaff. Because it hasn't really got that big sweep profile like the Nightbringer or the Void Dragon to some extent, it can't chew through easily like, say, a bunch of 20 cultists. It's going to take a turn or two. So in that respect, you can kind of tie it up by feeding it a low points value unit and pin it in place. On top of that, it's the usual C'tan stuff we're talking about, so big guns, especially with that melter keyword. And also, if you've got small arms fire, volume of hits with lethal hits will do significant chip damage. The other thing to think about is anti-fly keyword guns. Now, these are a little bit niche, there's not loads of these in the game, but they are highly effective against things that have got fly because you're getting past that high toughness. That about wraps things up for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know if I've missed anything in the comments or you've got any other ideas that we can share with the wider Necron community. All that's left for me to do is to say a huge thank you to my YouTube channel members and Patreons. I'm going to read through your names and thank you very much for your support. It means a massive amount and it helps keep the channel going. At Elite level, we've got Adam40A1247, Castor, Chris Raven 932, David Lloyd, Living Dead Girl 40k, Northern Realms, Roburics, Slayer Miniatures, and then double Varity. We've got Varity and Varity 6253. At leader level, it's Chad Henry, Colin Nichol, Stainsby Kingsby, John O'Neill, David Pooley, and Stephen Ramsey. And on the Epic Heroes, we have Rally Point Games and Mines, Morton Monks Roller, and Sovolf. That's it from me. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for the next review.